We are now on page 10 of your working file, the subject of zoom. There are so many ways to zoom, but all of them really do see specific needs that you discover you have as you learn to design. So I am quickly going to run through a majority of them and give you an overview. Well, first of all, the zoom tool is the fourth one down, as you can see. Or you can tap Z on your keyboard to select your zoom tool, to which I'll do Z on the keyboard. To use it is very easy. Simply click and drag, and then whatever is inside of the mark key, that blue dotted line, we called it a mark key, we will zoom into. Now that black outline around this text is actually Alliance thickness to show you how powerful zoom means. Let's zoom in. Look at that. And I will zoom in quite wide. Isn't that amazing? Look. Well, 90,000% of zoom is very powerful. Well then, zoom back out too, so that we can see a page again is very easy. I can either double click on the zoom tool or tap F4 on my keyboard. I will double click, and look at that. We zoom back out to all objects. You'll notice that we have an option here where, when we put our finger on the Shift key plus the mouse, we can actually zoom in or out depending. Now let me show you what this means. Let me just quickly zoom in. Okay, now see the plus in the center of all the magnifying glass? If I put my finger on the Shift key, run, see how it turned to a negative? So let me do this for you. F4 for zoom back out tool object. I am going to type in a value of 100 RPM. Hit enter now, and then rather than drawing the mark, I am simply going to click, and I will click in the center of the plus. See that? 200%. Now what do you think will happen if I click again? It will just simply double 400%. Click again, 800, 1600, and so on as we go through. If I put my finger on the Shift key now, it'll become a negative zoom. See how it becomes negative? So click and watch, the reverse will happen. See that? As I click out, where I click, it zooms out, and we are back to 100%. So it's just F4. That's what the Shift plus the math allow us to do, is to swap as to whether to zoom in or zoom out. Now a couple of other really powerful things. If I select the word zoom, Shift plus F2, zoom into the selected object. We know that the object is selected because we can see those black handles around the outside. So Shift and F2, we zoom into the object. Isn't that cool? Now I'm quickly going to change pages, I think, so I will go over here, Control Tab. Well, I will quickly say this one. If I select that object, Shift and F2 as we just did, we zoom into the object. F4 does the same thing. So the thing is that what F4 allows me to do is if I have multiple objects on my screen, F4 zoom into the multiple object, so I will pop that down. So F4 to see all the objects, whereas if I select that one, Shift and F2 zooms to the selected object, and finally Shift and F4 zooms to the page. Okay, anyway, I have written there more for you, as you can see. So where are we here? Shift and F4 zooms to the page, F4 tool objects, and so on. Finally, navigating around your document. If, for example, we are zooming into a document, let's just say we are here. We are doing some work. We can actually come right down through the bottom here and see how my mouse turns a little plus over that little magnifying glass as I click, and that's what we called a navigator, as I move around holding my mouse down, or I get to the spot, or I want to release my mouse and stay there. There is another great way of doing this also. If I have my magnifying glass selected on my zoom tool, and let's say we zoom into the area there, and I now type in navigator on my keyboard, I now have a navigator come up for me, and I can move around at that zoom level on my screen. Click, and there we are. F4, and finally we can use the pan tool if we want to, which is H or go to fly out. When you here see the pan tool, Now we can click and drag and move the entire document around. This is great when you are zoomed in because you describe it and move things over a little bit like that, so you can maintain the zoom level while you're working. Well, I covered a lot, but really everything we talked about is written across the bottom here, except for typing in a value there, and of course clicking and Dream Arcade. So go ahead, have a play with Zoom, and when you're familiar, we are about to start learning how to design.